Tonight you scrolled for 40 minutes without finding anything worth watching. You sat in a room full of people and felt completely alone. You woke up at 3 a.m. with a vague, nameless dread that you couldn't explain. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a thought you've never said out loud. I don't belong here. What if that thought wasn't a symptom of something wrong with you? What if it was evidence of something right? Because here is the thing no one tells you. Your body, your brain, your instincts, they were not built for this world. They were built for a completely different one. One that vanished 10,000 years ago. And the mismatch between the world you were designed for and the world you actually live in explains almost everything you've ever struggled with. You are, in the most literal biological sense, a time traveler living in the wrong era. Anthropologist Timothy Taylor spent decades studying what he calls the evolutionary mismatch, the gap between the environment that shaped the human species and the one modern humans now occupy. His conclusion was stark. The human brain reached its current form roughly 200,000 years ago. The agricultural revolution happened 12,000 years ago. The Industrial Revolution happened 250 years ago. The smartphone was invented 15 years ago. In evolutionary terms, you are essentially a Stone Age creature who woke up in a server farm and is doing its best. Your brain did not update. The world did. Think about what your ancestors' daily life actually looked like. Not the version from movies, the real version. You woke up with the sun. Not because an alarm forced you to, because your body was synced to light the way a plant is synced to light. You moved all day, not worked out, moved, carried, climbed, walked, crouched, sprinted in short bursts when something terrified you. You ate when food appeared, which was not guaranteed, and your body stored every calorie it could because scarcity was the default setting of life. You slept in a group of people who knew your name, your history, your fears. You were never alone. The concept of being surrounded by strangers was essentially impossible. Everyone you would ever encounter in your entire life, you probably already knew. And then everything changed. Fast. Too fast for biology to keep up. Neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent 30 years studying loneliness at the University of Chicago. What he found should have rewritten the way we understand modern suffering. Loneliness, Cacioppo argued, is not an emotion. It is a biological alarm system. When your ancestors were separated from their group, even briefly, they were in mortal danger. Alone meant exposed. Alone meant no one to warn you about the predator. No one to share the fire. No one to help if you were injured. Your brain evolved to treat social disconnection the same way it treats physical pain, as a signal that your survival is threatened. Now consider the modern world. The average person in a major city lives surrounded by millions of strangers. They may go days without meaningful human contact. They attend schools, offices, apartment buildings full of people they barely know. And their ancient brain, unchanged since the savannah, fires the same alarm it always did. Danger. Disconnection. You are alone. You are going to die. That low hum of anxiety you carry everywhere, that is not weakness. That is your alarm system screaming at a threat it was built to detect and finding it everywhere. But loneliness is only the beginning. Your relationship with food is a perfect case study in evolutionary mismatch. For nearly all of human history, the biggest threat to your survival was not eating too much. It was not eating enough. Your body developed an extraordinary craving for sugar, fat, and salt. The three nutrients that were hardest to find, most critical to survival, and most reliably stored as energy reserves against future scarcity. Your brain releases dopamine when you consume them. It rewards you for finding them. It tells you to eat more than you need right now because tomorrow might bring nothing. That system worked perfectly for 200,000 years. Then, in an eye blink of evolutionary time, Those nutrients became available in unlimited quantities at every corner, every hour of the day, cheap and engineered to hit your ancient reward circuits as hard as possible. And your brain had no defense. It was never supposed to need one. Evolutionary biologist Daniel Lieberman at Harvard calls this an evolutionary hangover, a trait that was adaptive in the ancestral environment and is now actively harmful in the modern one. His research on the human body reads like a list of the problems you probably deal with every day. Chronic back pain, because your spine evolved for a body that moved constantly in varied ways, not one that sits rigid in a chair for 8 hours. Flat feet and plantar fasciitis, because your feet evolved to walk on uneven natural terrain, not hard flat floors. Nearsightedness, because your eyes evolved to scan vast distances, and prolonged close-up focus, especially in children, literally changes the shape of the eyeball. Your body is not broken. It is running the wrong software on the wrong hardware. And then there is the question of meaning, of purpose. In your ancestral environment, the question of what to do with your life was never asked. It did not need to be. Your role was clear. You were a hunter, a gatherer, a parent, a keeper of stories, a healer, a maker of tools. Your contribution to the group was visible every single day. People noticed when you succeeded. People needed what you provided. The sense of purpose that modern humans spend entire lifetimes and enormous amounts of money trying to locate, therapy, retreats, career pivots, self-help books, was simply built into the structure of daily life. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi studied what he called flow, the state of total absorption in a meaningful, challenging task. He found it was the condition most reliably associated with human happiness. And what he described, almost exactly, was the experience of a skilled hunter tracking prey, or a craftsperson shaping a tool, or a mother teaching a child to identify edible plants. The tasks that generate the deepest human satisfaction are almost universally ancient ones: physical, immediate, social, tied to clear, real-world outcomes. Modern life offers very few of them by default. This is not nostalgia. This is not an argument that ancient life was better. It was brutal. It was short. It was painful in ways that modern medicine has largely abolished. Infant mortality alone would break your heart. There is no version of this that ends with the conclusion that you should trade your antibiotics for a spear. But here is what it does mean. The anxiety that won't leave you alone is not irrational. The restlessness you feel sitting still for hours is not a disorder. The craving you have for real community, for physical labor, for a task with a clear beginning and a clear end, for a life where your actions visibly matter to people you actually know, that is not weakness. That is signal. That is your ancient brain correctly identifying what it was built for and correctly reporting that it is not getting it. Researcher Stephen Elordi developed a treatment protocol called Therapeutic Lifestyle Change, TLC, after noticing that rates of depression were dramatically lower in non-industrialized societies that still lived closer to ancestral patterns of movement, sunlight, social contact, and sleep. His clinical trials showed that deliberately reintroducing these ancestral elements, not as luxury or self-care, but as biological necessity, produced reductions in depression symptoms comparable to antidepressant medication. Not because they were trendy, because they were what the human animal actually needed, and modern life had stripped most of them away. You were not born in the wrong time. You were not built wrong. You were not too sensitive or too anxious or too needy or too restless for this world. You were built exactly right, for a world that no longer exists. And every time you feel the pull toward the woods, toward silence, toward real conversation, toward work that leaves something tangible behind, toward belonging somewhere that actually knows your name, that pull is not nostalgia for something you've never lived. It is memory encoded in biology. It is your body saying, with the quiet persistence of 200,000 years, this is what we were made for. Tonight, when you scroll again and find nothing worth watching, when you sit in a room full of strangers and feel inexplicably alone, you are not broken. You are ancient. And you are looking in the only world available to you for the world you were actually built for.